Let us chant Namo Tassa before the start of the session. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. So if we would turn to page number 309, the chart, and we are going to be starting on continuing on pre-nascence support. Nisaya Pache, the second Nisaya. Why can't I see any cameras today? Okay. So, pre-nascent support, everyone. Thank you. Let me share the screen. So, pre-nascent.
I thought we stopped at decisive support last time.
Oh, did we?
I think so. I don't know. We missed so many.
So okay. So is it decisive support then today? Have we covered base and object Nisaya? I feel like we have.
I think we finished Upanishad, decisive support.
All right. So
yeah, we nearly finished that. Yeah. So we are going to the next one.
Yes. Okay. Decisive support. Right. Decisive support. Decisive support, object, proximate, and natural. Let's read about it. Decisive support.
315.
315. Here we go. Decisive support condition. Of the three types of this condition, 1. Object decisive support, Arambana Upanishad, is a condition where the conditioning state is an exceptionally desirable or important object, which causes the conditioned states, the mental phenomena that apprehended to arise in strong dependence on it, is an exceptionally desirable or important object, which causes the conditioned states, the mental phenomena that apprehended to arise in strong dependence on it. Decisive support condition. Proximity decisive support. Anantaro Upanishad is identical with proximity condition with respect to the conditioning and conditioned states, but differs from it slightly in the forces of the conditions. Proximity is a force which causes the succeeding mental states to arise immediately after the preceding states have ceased. Proximity decisive support is the force which causes the succeeding states to arise because they are strongly dependent on the ceasing of the preceding state. On the ceasing of the preceding state. In the earlier one, which was proximity support, proximity condition, the ceasing of it, a loved or no, proximity condition allowed for the succeeding mental state to arise immediately after the ceasing of the preceding. Correct? Proximity decisive support is the other way around. Right? The succeeding chitta is dependent upon the ceasing of the preceding. Is that clear? Right? The succeeding chitta, the mental states, are wholly dependent, its arising is wholly dependent on the ceasing of the preceding. In the earlier proximity condition, what happened was, proximity condition was responsible, or its force, its sakti, was responsible for the immediate arising of the succeeding after the ceasing of the preceding. Is that clear? Is the difference clear? No. So what's the difference? Right? What's the difference? The difference is, right, it's two different forces, right? It's two different forces. In proximity condition, the proximity condition ensures that without a break in the continuum of consciousness, the succeeding chitta or mental phenomenon would arise right after the ceasing of the preceding. Got it? Right? That is proximity condition. Decisive proximity, proximity decisive support. Anantara Upanishaya, what does this have? What's the difference here? The difference is the succeeding. If we are talking about the integrity, the power, the force of the succeeding chitta, the succeeding chitta can only arise when the preceding chitta or mental phenomena has completely ceased. Right? Has completely ceased. Proximity condition ensures continuity. Proximity decisive support is where the succeeding is dependent wholly on the fact of the ceasing of the preceding. Is that clear? That's the difference. It's talking about two entirely different forces. In the first one, proximity condition, again, the force ensured the continuity of mental phenomenon upon the ceasing of one phenomena, here the preceding mental state, the succeeding mental state arises without any break in between them, right? Proximity decisive support is the dependence of the succeeding chitta, the dependence of the succeeding chitta, dependence on what? Dependence on the ceasing of the preceding. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Right? Good. Any questions? If we are to speak about or look at it in a different manner, is if we are thinking about an entity, right? Think about two entities, right? Two entities. This is the preceding consciousness. This is the succeeding consciousness. We know, according to the law of proximity condition, right? Anantara Pachaya, according to proximity condition, Anantara Pachaya, when the preceding chitta arises and passes, and a residual energy or a vibration of this consciousness is the force by which the next chitta arises. However, as long as this force exists, this succeeding chitta cannot have its dominance. Do you understand now? Right? Proximate condition speaks about the flow of the mental continuum, whilst decisive support condition, proximity decisive support, Anantara Upanishaya, speaks about the dependence of the succeeding consciousness on the ceasing of the preceding consciousness for the succeeding consciousness to reach its peak of strength. For that force of the succeeding consciousness to reach its peak state, the preceding consciousness, I'm sorry, did I say, I'm confusing. For the succeeding consciousness to reach its peak state, the preceding consciousness must be or must completely cease. Do you understand? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions, anyone? No questions.
Bhante,
Yes.
can you give me an example? Is it now, okay, let me take an example. Now, if somebody
Yeah.
is meditating continuously,
Yeah.
that has got a strong kusala, karma or kusala chitta,
Okay.
right? Will that affect now? Will that strength help you to continue with the same thought process?
Okay. Now, if we might take this example, Damsri, it just popped
Yeah.
in my head,
Yeah.
right? Now, the traffic lights, right? We
Yeah.
have, what do we have? Is it red, green, and amber?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, we have those three, right? Now there is no when the green or when the amber starts, right? And then the amber stops and the green starts, right? Or the amber blinks and the red starts, right? For the power of red to reach its the purpose of it, the amber must stop. For green to reach the purpose of its existence, the amber must stop. Right? But the green will only arise after the amber. If I might be wrong. Huh?
No, I think, Bhante,
Yes.
the amber comes
Okay.
after red.
Okay. So
And then amber comes after red.
okay.
And then, amber comes after, sorry, let me correct it. Amber comes after green.
Okay, amber comes after green.
After green.
Okay.
And
Yes.
green comes after red, actually.
Okay, green.
Yeah.
Okay,
After
green,
red comes immediately green,
green. Hard.
and amber comes, yeah.
Okay, got it. So then it would be the red must stop for the green to be operational. If
Yeah.
red and green exist at the same time, you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? However, green will always arise after the red. At the demise of the red, green prospers. But red must be there for green to have prominence also.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's just this example which popped into my mind. So I think it makes sense, doesn't it? Right?
The important thing is because it's the object should be very strong, Upanishad. It's not Nisaya, it's a Upanishad. That means it's a strong object.
Yes.
So that means, that means the red is the strongest in our case.
Here, the object has to be something that is exceptionally desirable or important, which is then considered by whom? The cognizer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to point out that the importance of that object is dependent on the person who is cognizing, the person who is hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, seeing.
Yeah.
Right? Not the object. However, the object must be something that is by this person now exceptionally desirable or important. It is because of that, that the mind arises dependent upon this object. The whole Chittaviti, including the javanas and the karmas that are created and the tadalambanas that arise, all arise and write or create this sort of karmic consciousness and all of those effects because of this object. Is that clear? That is, everyone, object decisive support condition. Right? Proximity is the fact of the preceding must cease for the succeeding to reach a state of prominence. Right? To reach a state of prominence. Right? Now, in proximity condition, if we take the same traffic light example, in proximity condition, anantara pachaya, if we are to apply the same example, anantara pachaya would ensure what? Can any one of you tell me what, in the same example, what does anantara pachaya mean with regards to the traffic light example we just used? What do you think?
Anantara Paksha is actually the continuation of the process without intermediate stopover. Or
Yes.
it immediately switch to next stage of the one.
Yes.
That's Anantara. That means Anantara. Atara. Yeah, without
Good, Dhamma. Yes, exactly what you're saying. But let us apply it to the example, if you can, please. Dhamma, why can't I see your camera today?
I have a problem with the camera.
Oh, okay.
So I just noticed actually.
Okay.
I get a message saying that Zoom is unable to detect your camera. Okay. Yeah. So you may have to talk to the blind screen.
Okay, we'll manage for now.
Yeah. The I think we discussed this one. I think one of the write-ups given by Hing or somebody, and it explained Anantara Pache is similar to what has happened recently in England when Queen died, and there was no intermediate stage. The next second, Charles became the king,
Correct.
right? Without any interstage.
Right. Right.
Okay, that's explanation here. While Samanantara,
No.
yeah,
Traffic light. Can we come to the traffic light?
traffic light.
Because
So-
we use that example, and I think it's quite clear for proximity decisive support.
Yeah.
So with regard to the traffic light, Damsiri, enang api kohomada eka
Okay,
තේරුම් ගන්න?
traffic light. So when you have red light
Right.
without going into amber, next one is green,
Yes.
right? So there's no interstage amber lights when you change from red to green, but you have interstage when you change to green to red. From green to red, it will go through green, amber, and red.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
that's that. Yeah. So your
So-
explanation is red. When you change from red to green,
Yes.
there's no interstage. It quickly switch over.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, is that clear to everyone then, the example then? Right? Now let me explain or use that example again. Anantara Pacha, everyone, right? As Damsiri corrected us, it's red, green, amber, red. Right? Red, green, amber, red. And then that whole cycle goes on, isn't it? Right? Or red, green, amber, and that cycle goes on. Right? Red, green, amber, and that cycle goes on. Okay? According to, if we use this example to then understand Anantara Pache, proximity condition, then the proximity condition is the fact of what? Proximity condition is the fact that upon the ceasing of red, green will arise. Right? Which means red, after red, green will arise. After green, amber will arise. After amber, red will arise. After red, green will arise. After green, amber will arise. That is proximate condition. Right? That is that understood? The fact that upon the ceasing of red, green arises without any break. Upon the ceasing of green, amber arises without any breaks there. Right? Is that clear? Right. Then what is proximity decisive support? Right? Proximity decisive support is this. Okay. If we start with, let's start with green, right? Just for the sake of the example. Green is dependent upon the ceasing of red. Right? The cars will be unable to move up until red has ceased. The cars, if we are then talking about amber, the cars will not slow down up until green has ceased. Do you now understand the difference? Is that clear, everyone? Right? What it then essentially means is, for green to do what green must do, it cannot do up until red has ceased. Right? For amber to do what it is intended or created or becomes to do, is unable to carry out that function up until the ceasing of green. Is that clear? Proximity condition was about the flow, right? About the flow. Proximity decisive support was about the ceasing of the preceding for the flourishing of the succeeding. Do you understand? The succeeding will not flourish up until the preceding has completely ceased. Is that clear? Right? That should be completely clear by now. Any questions? Very happy to go over it again if need be. Anyone? Any doubts? Okay. Then we have natural decisive support. Right? Natural decisive support. Natural decisive support Pakatupanisse Pachaya, is a wide relation that includes, as the conditioning states, all past mental or material phenomena that become strongly efficacious, again, includes, as conditioning states, all past mental or material phenomena that become strongly efficacious for the arising at a subsequent time of the conditioned states, which are subsequent chittas and chetasikas. For example, prior lust may be a natural decisive support condition for volitions of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, etc. Prior faith for volitions of giving alms, undertaking precepts, practicing meditation, gaining of health for happiness and energy, the onset of sickness for sorrow and torpor. Right? So natural decisive support, if we look at it in this manner, if we have meditated yesterday, right, the meditation today is going to be a bit better. If we have meditated for a week, then the meditation tomorrow is going to be better. Do you understand? Right? If we are used to the concept of dana, the giving of dana is going to be good, meaning we know how to do it. If the adhering to sila has been done before, then the adhering to sila that is done now is going to be powerful and powerful. That is what it talks about. Is that clear, everyone? Right? The fact that depending upon previous practice, previous observances, regardless of whether it is wholesome or unwholesome, that observance can determine the strength and power of what is done now. Right? Or what is done now. That is natural decisive support, right? Natural decisive support. So the more that we live with Yoniso Manasikara, the better resilience the mind is going to have. The more that we cultivate Ayoniso Manasikara, the deeper or the weaker the mind is going to fall into states of unwholesome. Yeah, that is what this condition then talks about, right? When prior states condition or becomes a support for what? Becomes a support for similar states to be more powerful. Yeah. The states of unwholesome done prior supports the efficacy or the strength of unwholesome of this moment. Right? For example, if we have never stolen in our lives, if we've never committed any act of theft, the person who just commits this act at this point, at this moment, might be quite nervous about it, right? Of doing this wrong thing, the person might feel very sort of a feeling of uneasiness. But a person who is used to stealing is able to do so with a calm and collected mind. Is that understood? Is that clear? There you go. That is what we are talking about in natural decisive support. Is that clear, everyone? Is that understood? Right? Let's go to the numbers. Sorry. Let's go to the numbers. No, that is it. Let's go to the numbers. Now, before we go to the numbers, before I forget, everyone, I'm just going to Dhamsiri. On the previous class, we had this sort of conversation about on prenascence, right? On prenascence. And I thought we were doing prenascence, so I was reading through it today, right? And I came across this and I thought it sort of shed some light onto what we were discussing with regards to rebirth and the time of rebirth. Remember, we were talking about it, everyone, right? The time of that consciousness arises and all. So I found this, right? Let's read from here. So this is Prenations Condition, right? Basically, conditioning state. Prenations condition is a condition where conditioning state, a material state, which has already arisen and reached a state of presence, causes mental states to arise. Right? Now we have two, base prenascence and object prenascence. Base prenascence would talk about the sensory bases, right? The material sensory bases, including Hade Vastu. Now, with regards to Hade Vastu here, right? Now, this is Vattu Pure Jata. Each of the 6 physical bases during the course of existence is a conditioning state by way of base prenascence, right? Why? It is because asa thiyena hinda balanna puluwan. Chakku vinyane hataganne me chakku prasade thiyena hetuwen. Right? Because the Chakku Prasad is present, the material eye is present, we are able to receive rupas, material formations, right? For the Chitta and Chaitasikas, the conditioned states to arise that take it as material support for its arising. The heart, now this is the point here. The heart base is not a prenascence condition for the mental states at the moment of rebirth linking. Since on that occasion, the heart base and the mental states arise simultaneously as sahajata and anyamanya pachaya, as sahajat, connaissance, and mutuality condition. Right? What it would then say is when the Hade Vastu arises, right? When the Hade Vastu arises, it arises connascent with material, mental phenomenon. What becomes mental phenomenon here? Mental phenomenon here is the Patisandhi Chittaviti, right? Patisandhi Chittaviti. That Patisandhi Chittaviti is both sahajata as well as anyamanya, connascent as well as mutuality, right? So Hadevastu, the seat of mind, the core of mind, the base of the mind, arises with the consciousness, not as prenaissance, but as sahajata and anyamanya pachaya. Is that clear? Right? Again, what we are saying is, at the moment of rebirth, Hadevastu arises together with the mind, together, as Sahajata and Anyamanya. Anyamanya, how? The Patisandhi Chittaviti is there. No? The Patisandhi Chittaviti supports the Hadevastu. Hadevastu supports the Patisandhi Chittaviti. Right? But after which, but the heart base risen at the rebirth moment becomes a prenaissance condition for the first bhavanga. ඒ කියන්නේ අර පටිසන්ධි චිත්තවීතිය ඉවරුණාට පස්සේ, right? The first bhavanga arises according to prenaissance condition, purejata pachaya, right? And what is the conditioning state? The heart base there. Do you understand? Because the heart base is present, the mind, the first bhavanga is able to arise. Is that clear, everyone? So which sheds a bit of light into what we were talking about last time we had the class, which was upon or circulating around the question of when does the mind actually arise, right? When does the mind actually arise, right? The only thing then, the only other question that can be left here is the fact of then what exactly, right, is the heart base and is the heart base at the moment of its arising, right? When the heart base, now the physical, some might argue and say the physical heart, or rather the position of what will become the heart, is material that is supported by the utu of the mother, right? The utu of the mother, right, does not hold the sattva as yet. Do you get what I mean? Like, for example, the fertilization process starts because of the utu of the mother, right? Yeah? No? Yeah.
Utu, first kalapa, Utu kalapa,
Yeah.
arises at the stage of Patisandhi.
No, we are talking about the utu of the mother.
Utu of the mother. Oh, right.
Utu of the mother. Utu of the mother, which allows for the fertilization to happen.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So the fertilization process, මෙතන එන්න පුළුවන් එකම ප්‍රශ්නේ තමයි, because the fact of they say this is a very subtle rupa. It is a quality of the rupa, right, and cannot be pinpointed. But then the question is, okay, then the only question I feel like, from what I can think, is the only question that could arise here. Let me first explain what we are talking about. The Utu of the mother, right? The Utu of the mother is what allows. So the mother having the karma, having the Utu, all of these things in balance is what allows the fertilization process to take place, right? Right? If the fertilization process to take place. When the fertilization process takes place, then up until the Patisanti Chitta arises, and this fertilized egg becomes a being with a different consciousness from the mother, up until that point, what we say is there is no life, right? Because the maintenance, according to Buddhism and Abhidhamma, the maintenance of that fertilized egg is done so by the mother's Utu, the nutrition and all of that. It's the mother's. It's not a being yet because of the lack of the individual consciousness stream, right? The consciousness stream, as stated here, will arise together with the Hadaya Vastu, right? If the Hadaya Vastu is present, the consciousness stream is present with it. What is the first consciousness, you might ask? It is the Patisandhi Chitta Viti, right? Is the Patisandhi Chitta Viti. Now, let us not Patisandhi Chitta Viti. Patisandhi Chitta Viti. Let me then show you exactly what that is. You can see the chart, yes? So here we are then looking at rebirth, rebirth, rebirth. Oh, here, right? So we are looking at Chuti, right? Can everyone see? Now this process, let me increase this view. Here, this process. Is anyone lost? No, right? Is anyone lost? Okay. So this is the Chittaviti process, the death and the birth, right, of a new life, right? So what we are talking about is, now this process will run, right? Now javanas, here you see the javanas as well. This is the yes. So this is the first VT, it stops, right? And then the last VT begins here, the Chuti. Here now, when the Chuti arises, this is a clear Cheda, Kaya Cheda happens here. Is that understood, everyone? Kaya Cheda happens here, right? The Bhavangas will flow up until the Kaya Cheda happens. When the Kaya Cheda happens, then we have this one here, right? Now, I'm going to guide your attention back to this paragraph, right? The hard base is not prenations condition for the mental states at the moment of rebirth linking, since on the occasion, the hard base and mental states arise simultaneously as connascent and mutuality condition, right? But the hard base arisen at the rebirth moment becomes prenaissance condition for the first bhavanga chitta immediately following the rebirth consciousness. Let us just highlight that. Right, where is the highlighter? Here. Right, let us just highlight that. So we are talking about two processes, this process and this process, everyone. Right, two processes. Let me now point it out to you. Here, the first process, right? The first process is here. Do you see it? This is where, right? This is where the Kammaja Rupa would arise, right? During the time of Kammaja Rupa, now this is the Patisandhi, isn't it? The Chuti with the Chuti, the Kaya Cheda from the preceding Bhava has now taken place. Right? Kaya Chede. You're now the preceding Kaya, the body is now dead. Right? Is now dead. Right? Now, immediately afterwards, Chuti and then Patisandhi. Are you following me, everyone? Chuti and then Patisandhi. During the Patisandhi moment, two processes take place. Mental process and physical process. The physical process, Kammaja Rupa, right? Now see Kammaja Rupa here. Kammaja Rupa is Upada, Titi, Banga. You see the three dots? All three of which is Kammaja Rupa. What does that denote? Hade Vastu. Why? Can mind arise without the heart base? It cannot. So here, this is where now the heart base has now begun to arise. Do you understand? Is that clear? And with it, the consciousness and the heart base arises at this Upada moment. Right? At this Upada moment, matures at the moment of Titi, however, arises at the Upada moment. Right? Here, then the question remains, the only question that can arise is this. Right? Is the Bhava Rupa. Right? Is the fact now, Bhava Rupa, sorry, do you get what I just mentioned up until that point, everyone? Is that clear? Any questions? Anyone? Does everyone understand? Rupa chart English. Right. Right. Here, right, okay, the vital nonad. No, not the vital nonad. Heart base. So, base nonad, Hade Vastu, base nonad, Hade Vastu, Hade Vastu, Bhava Rupa, Bhava Rupa.
The body, heart, and the two sexes.
Kaya, Bhava, and Hade.
No.
Heart base.
Heart,
Vattu.
Vattu Dasakaya,
Vattu.
Bhava Dasakaya, and Kaya Dasakaya.
Okay, Vattu Dasaka, Bhava Dasaka, and Kaya Dasaka.
Yeah.
Right? So, Vattu Dasaka is then, the Vattu Dasaka is the heart base, the Vattu Dasaka, Bhava Dasaka, and the Kaya Dasaka. Vattu Da. So, vital nonad, the base.
Bhante,
Yes. Go on, Damsiri. Hello. Damsiri, you're muted.
vital nonad
Okay.
will not come here because it's applicable to only to Asanya Satta.
Asana Satta, yes.
Yeah.
Then,
But you have a vital
yes, the base.
base, yeah.
Base decard, right? Base decard. Kaya Dasaka. The base decard here would be then Damsri, the Hade.
Kaya Dasaka, Bhava, that gives you the sex.
Yes.
Identify the sex.
Which is either the femininity decard or the masculinity decard.
Yeah. And then Kaya. So we have a Kaya, tiny little body.
Body decard.
Yeah, body decard. Kaya, yes. Do you have a body card, ID card? I can't remember I can see the.
Mm, body card. So body, okay, base card. So what we are talking about, everyone, is during the process of Patisandhi, these three factors arise. These three factors arise as a kammaja. Here, kamma born, right? It arises as kamma born. So the determinants of sex, whether it is a male or a female, is dependent upon karma, right? Which is a part of the Patisandhi process. Right? Dhamma, what I'm just thinking about is with body card, this body card is body sensitivity, pottabba.
You don't have the Pontappa yet. It's
Yes,
only the.
but here you see pottabba is present. That is why I'm just doubting.
Yeah. No, Pontappa as a sense, you don't have that. The body card is, it's the materiality of the newborn, right?
The materiality of the newborn.
Oh, yes. So this is the representing the. It's not giving rise to Pontappa. Pontappa is a sensory level.
So what you're saying is, although then we take the body card, we don't associate it with pottabba?
Pontappa, no.
Okay. Base, masculinity, femininity, base. Okay. Right. So then the only question that can possibly arise, everyone, is this question with regards to sex, right? With regards to sex, which is now when the consciousness arises, the consciousness energy matches with the energy that is present with regards to the mother, the father, the fertilized egg, the country, the place, all of those factors come into consideration, right? Does that make sense, everyone? All of those factors come into consideration, right? Now, then the question is, does the mind arise in a place suiting of the sex that it will be born by? That is the only question that could then sort of now complicate the answer to the question of when does the mind arise? Because do you get what I mean? Which is this, right? Now, just remember Kaya Dasaka, Vasu Dasaka, and Bhava Dasaka. Bhava Dasaka is sex, right? Just remember that. Okay. Now, in this process, now the debate, right, is a fact of when this arises, right? Now, we know Patisandhi process, the mind, Kammaja Rupa brings with it, or because of Kammaja Rupa, or Kammaja Rupa is here, Kammaja Rupa arises here. If Kammaja Rupa is arising, that also means the fact that Hade Vastu has arisen. If Hade Vastu has arisen, it means that mind has arisen, isn't it? Because Hade Vastu and mind arises as Sahajata Pachaya and Annimanya Pachaya, right? It arises connascent, it arises together, and it supports one another, right? After the me Patisandhi Chitte Shevunata Passe, after the ceasing of this Patisandhi process, Upatiti Banga, this process here, arises the Bhavanga. Now, at this moment, the Hade Vastu is pre-nascent, Purejata.
Yes.
Why? Because the Hade Vastu has arisen here already, right? Now, because the Hade Vastu has arisen here, this Bhavanga is able to arise because of the presence of Hade. Is that clear, everyone? Noeli, is that clear? Yes?
Yeah, earlier we studied that these three, the heart, body, and the sex, come together. But now it doesn't happen like that then.
No. It does. It does. It does. But do you understand the point that I have just mentioned? Right? Which is Patisandhi process. This is the first mind and physical process of the new birth. Right? This Patisandhi. At this moment, the Hadevastu arises, and with the Hadevastu arises mind as well. Right? Is that clear?
Yeah.
Now, at this moment, it is not Purejata Pacha. It is not Prenations Pacha. Right? But at this moment, at this first Bhavanga, the Hadevastu becomes Purejata Pacha, because the Hadevastu arose here, no? Now, because it arose earlier, now that becomes a conditioning state for this Bhavanga to arise. Is that clear, everyone?
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Bhante, that's very important point, because that's the continuation of the life.
That is now where the life takes independence.
That's right. Yes.
That is now the establishing of being.
Yeah.
Right? That is the establishing of being. Now, is that clear, everyone? Any doubts? Carter, does anyone have a doubt? No? I'm very happy to explain if anyone does.
Okay. What is the establishment of being, you said, is a human?
Establishing of being is
Yes.
integrity, is the integrity of the being, mind and matter.
Okay.
Mind and matter, for a being to be established, the being must be able to now start developing, cultivating, producing its own karmas. Right? That process, there must be continuation. Up until this Patisandhi, Sujata,
Yes.
this Patisandhi process was all drawn out by our previous karmas, karmajarupa, see?
Oh, yes.
Right? Now we are starting, now we are able to, this is now the starting of the being within this new rebirth.
Yes, that's right. I was wondering. Yeah. Yes, Bhante. Got
Okay,
it.
that is what we mean. Right?
If you use another word,
Yeah.
it's the individual.
A
Yes.
person. You could say a human being.
The beginning of that individuality.
Yes.
Right? The beginning of that individuality.
Yeah. Of life, you can't say? Beginning of life?
So life is very ambiguous, no? Because some could also, Sujata, might say life is the beginning of fertility. Right? When the egg and the sperm first mix fertility. So it's very ambiguous. It's a very general term.
Right.
So that is why here, for a being, for the persistence of a being, the being is an individual. That individuality begins at this position. Right? When the Hadevastu arises, and when this Hadevastu can be the base for the arising of mind, now the individual has arisen.
That's B-E-I-N-G, being.
B-E-I-N-G, not B-E-A-N.
Okay. Right. I got it, Bhante. Being, B-E-I-N-G. Yeah.
B-E-I-N-G. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you, Bhante.
Right. Now, then the argument is this. Right? Now, this is, up until this point, this is simple. Right? This is simple. The argument then comes in here, which is, does the being arise? Now, let us say the X chromosome, Y chromosome, when we take that process, right, we can say, okay, whether this being is going to be male or female, right? Male or female. Now, then the question arises here. What is the question? Does the consciousness of the being who is to be born, right? does it arise in a position, if let us say the being has a karma to arise in a position as a male or a female, right? A male or a female. If that is so, it can also be a eunuch. It can also be a eunuch, a male, female, or eunuch, right? If the being has a karma, let us say, has a karma to be born as a man, right? Then does the consciousness arise in a position, a place, a womb, which already has the energy, the physical energy of producing a male, what's the word to use? A male body, right? That is where the question arises. Because remember, when we also when Kukulpane Sudasi Hamdru gave a bana for us, right? I remember specifically that Dhamma brought this up with Kukulpane Sudasi Hamdru. And what Kukulpane Sudasi Hamdru said, that this is a very assumed rupa, right? I didn't think that he answered the question clearly, but what he did mention is that these are qualities of rupa. Then the question arises, then still the question remains, the consciousness arises, so the physical on the mother's part, that is on the mother's utu, right? On the mother's utu, the mother's utu has, that means the fertilized egg has the genetics necessary to be male or female. Does the consciousness then arise at a suitable place where the genetics for a male or a female is present, right? So in thinking of Kammajarupa, the Bhavadasaka, the Bhavadasaka arises in further facilitating the being as a male or female, or the continuation of that individuality is then where the question appears. Do you understand what I'm talking about? No.
Bhante,
Yes.
yeah, but what you are trying to say is now in this particular case, we know that whether it's female or male, that's
Yeah.
already identified. Not
Yeah.
only that, whether he has got some unusual disease, right? Or whether he's going to be a blind or some sort of thing will be engraved in his chromosomes, right? So definitely this particular person is the person that ultimately give rise to the individual. So there's no chance of implanting another person into this color, because everything is defined now. The future is defined by chromosomes also.
Yeah. Yes. In that chromosome, in the question of those chromosomes, Dhammasiri, right? Now, if we take the two implications of karma, right, which is Trihetuka Pratisandhi, a Trihetuka Pratisandhi would ensure a healthy child.
That's right.
Right. However, when the Garuka karma is present as Trihetuka Pratisandhi, but which karma is it? Upastambhaka? A disturbing karma comes in. Upapilaka. And Upapilaka karma comes in to disrupt the maturation of the Trihetuka Pratisandhi in a way that it creates, let us say, blindness or deafness or some sort of physical harm to the maturation process of the child, right? Now, then physically, if that is possible, that would then be the description for a trihetuka patisandhi and a upapilaka karma now disturbing the natural maturation process of that trihetuka patisandhi. So both could happen. So then the question comes, then the question is, Damsiri, right, is, okay, are there positions where the chromosomes naturally are present, which would ensure a healthy child, right, with all of the factors and features present? Can that process be disturbed? Or although the chromosomes are present during the time of maturation, can that process be obstructed genetically?
Yes.
So,
It is
then,
possible.
yes.
So individual, Bhante, every individual has a genetic code, right?
Okay.
Unique genetic code. We
Wow.
have a combination of genes in a coded way.
Hmm.
So you have that is considered as the karmaja rupa,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But certain genes can be suppressed. Either genetic properties can be suppressed by maybe by pure manifestation of outside conditions,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And the type of food you take,
Hmm.
or radiation, or type of motherhood
Sure.
you are going to get,
Sure.
right? So now, I think everybody knows that everyone has cancer cells,
Yeah.
but we never develop this. Everyone will never develop these cancer cells into cancer patients.
Yeah.
Only certain people will develop it purely on the basis of karmic influence,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And same way, your genetic the footprint is there, but there's a possibility, various possibilities, that certain properties of genes will not influence your life.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So that is the interpretation of the upastambaka, upapidaka, upagataka karma that overrides the general genetic configuration.
Can be assumed, not all the time also.
Yeah, can be assumed. Yeah.
Can be assumed.
Yeah.
Right. But without, let us say, without an external issue, let us say the mother takes her nutrition, does not drink or smoke or do any of those things that can directly bring harm to the fertility process, then on its own, again, on the weakness of that chromosome structure, or whatever it is, that genetical structure, can that the maturation of those chakusotagana jivakai be affected on its own?
Good question for Mala.
Bhante, there's something called epigenetics.
Okay.
We are born with certain genes, but those, let's say, diabetes or blindness or what it is, but the genes have to be expressed. I may be having the sort of genes for cancer.
Okay.
And even after I was born, that gene has to be expressed.
Mhm.
If it's not expressed, I won't get cancer. It's something new. It's called epigenetics.
Epigenetics.
Because some genes are suppressed, like say cardiac conditions, cancer. diabetes. Say diabetes. If both your parents are diabetes, you are definitely you have the diabetes gene. But
Yeah.
the gene, because of epigenetics, that diabetic gene can be not expressed.
Mm.
The gene, if the gene is expressed only, the person gets diabetes.
Mm.
This is called epigenetics.
Okay. 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 So right. So everyone, are we clear on what we just discussed? Any questions from anyone? Or anything to add even?
Bhante, from what you said, now when the mother's ovum, the egg, unites with the sperm, the chromosomes get mixed up. So at that time, if the zygote or the egg gets something called XX, X from the mother, X from the father, it is a female. And if it's X from the mother and Y from the father, it's a male. So that means when the Pratisandhi Vijnana comes, it's attracted towards, because it's already decided now this egg has got XY, so it has to be a male. So the Pratisandhi Vijnana is attracted to that male egg. Because if you are destined, if your destiny is to become a female, it won't get attracted to this person with XY chromosome, because when the egg is formed, it's either XX or XY. It's already decided.
Yes. 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 And I think that is exactly what was stated, that the consciousness, that the Patisandhi Chitta, the Upada of the Patisandhi Chitta in the new birth will happen in a place, a position suiting to the karmas that you have.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? Suiting to the වාතාවරණ තියෙන තැනට උප්පත්ති ලැබෙනවා. So for example, even like the Buddha, he did the sort of the 5 sort of Balim, isn't it? Where he's going to sort of be reborn. So that environment was predetermined before the conception took place. Right? Siddhartha and Mahamaya were already wealthy. Right? They were already from the upper class. The male and the female sex was already determined by their sort of chromosomes, as we say. All of those factors were already determined. The Patisandhi Chitta arose in a position or place where it was suitable or matched the vibration necessary. Right? So then, ඊට පස්සේ, what we have to then talk about is, up until a certain point, all of those functions and features and everything that is there, the XX or the XY or whatever it is maintained by the mother. When does the process take on the individual, or process become the individual? That is where the Patisandhi process has now begun. And the Hade Vastu has arisen. Now, do you understand, everyone, why it was important to state the difference between this and this here? Because that is where this process, which has been before the male, the female, the chromosomes, healthy baby, diabetes, cancer, all of that was the mothers and fathers doing. Right? Now, what happened was, when the Patisandhi Chitta arose in a place where it was suitable to arise. Right? Where it was suitable to arise. When it did, this process, which was maintained by the mother's energy, by the mother's Sara, essence, was now taken over by the karmic energy of the newborn. Right? Of the newborn. That is a very important demarcation. And it demarcates clearly the beginning of the individual. right? The beginning of the individual. Is that clear? Right? It is to that, then we have the question of, okay, when does this essentially arise? When does the individual arise? That is where we have the question, right? Which can be a process, between, as I remember, 6 weeks or so that was spoken about, after 6 weeks or 6 weeks to 12 weeks or something like that. But that is where the question is, right? Is that clear, everyone? Right? So I just wanted to point that out because I remember we did speak about it, and then reading this it sort of brought more light into what we had discussed, right? And also the fact of, I think we were stuck on the fact of, okay, male or female is determined by the Bhavadasaka, but the Bhavadasaka is already determined at the process of fertilization. So does that mean that just by the starting of the fertilization process, or when the sex is determined, that the being is present, right? So essentially, no. So the consciousness arises in a position, in a place suitable to its energy, right? So if, for example, the karmic energy flow is suitable to be born in a wealthy environment within a wealthy family, then it will be born or attracted to such a family. If it is not, then it will not, right? Then it will not. However, then it will not, right? Then it will not. Then it will not. Then there are positions like this as well, right? Where, let us say, the mother and the father are absolute saints, right? Absolute saints. However, the child, right, tentatively becomes an absolute monster, a spawn of the devil himself, right? Now, this could happen, right? This could happen. We have so many sort of studies on psychopaths and sociopaths, right? Which sort of speaks on occasions such as this, where the parents have no inclination of the sort, but then we have these sort of tendencies arising, especially with some of them have also been sort of traced back to sort of certain growths in the brain, which has given those tendencies to those children, right, as well. Do you follow what I mean? Right? Meaning the mother and the father are absolute sort of saints, but the child turns out to be completely different, right? Completely different to the quality. So then, then what is the suitable energy that we're talking about? That is where then the upagataka karmas can come in, right? Because remember, Trihetuka Patisandhi is alobha, adosa, amoha. It is a resultant of good, absolute good, right? Now, hence, this feeling of peace, right? Now, for example, each and every one of us, we will experience peace at a position where alobha, adosa, amoha, these three chittas are in a state of balance, right? That is why samadhi to anyone is a state of peace, right? Alobha, adosa, amoha. Even in a state of kusala, manusek, when a manusek of honda karana avasthavaka vunat, right? There is a state of peace. Do you get what I mean? Right? At any point, that bhavanga continuum, connecting to that bhavanga continuum, allows an experience of this peace, right? A state that is sort of in unison with what you were born with. Anything else other than alobha, adosa, amoha will not bring that sense of deep peace, right? Deep peace. So deep peace. So when we sort of look at then those changes, those abnormalities can be caused by upagataka karmas, upapilaka karmas, right? Which destroy and sort of support even the flourishing of unwholesome, right? And that upagataka upapilaka karmas can sort of give birth or give rise to certain growths within the body, which would create an environment necessary for that suffering to arise and occur. Is that clear? Does that make sense? Does that make sense, everyone? So, for example, there is this sort of medical study which has been, a child in the States, at a very young age, the child had very sort of very unusual state of attraction, right? Lust and murderous thoughts and all of that, right? I can't remember the name of the doctor, but the doctor, when this sort of was reported and the parents took the child to many psychologists, they did not sort of, they could not understand how to sort of, treat the child, or whether the child could even be treated at all. Some even sort of said, the child is sort of possessed, and they sort of did all these sort of exorcisms and all of that. But then one fine doctor did an MRI scan and found that there was a growth in the brain. And upon the removal of this growth, the child now came back to normal and lived a life continuing without those sort of, states of mind arising, right? So there are stories like that, occurrences like that as well, you see. So we can't, although we cannot sort of point directly and say this is it, right? However, although there are anomalies that can be present where the position or how we are born or to whom we are born, although it can be in the line of Trihetuka Patisandhi, can be, so sort of the ignorance of the prapanchas can be so strong that we sort of swayed away, and that is what usually happens. We are sort of swayed away from the Trihetuka Patisandhi vibration to something else because of the call of the tanha, ditthimana, and the hindrances and all of that, right? Hence, we feel or we have a sense of uneasiness as we do live when we do not connect to that alobha, those amoha aspects of our being, right? So, everyone, now let us come back to any questions before we move on. We only got 5 minutes, so maybe let us go to here. So, object, proximity, and natural, right? Object is 3-1. 3-1 object predominance. When the object is, now we're coming back to Pureja, decisive support, right? Decisive support. So 1 is object. What was object support? Object decisive support. It is when the object was extremely desirable, right? Extremely desirable. So what is that? That the mind arises based on this object that has arisen. What is that? 3-1. Here we have the 18 concrete matter, 84 chittas excluding 2 hate-rooted and 2 delusion, right? And the body consciousness with pain, because these are not extremely powerful consciousness. These are consciousness which draws away. These are not pleasant. These are not consciousnesses of feelings that we want to have. So we try our very level best to get away from this. So there is no attraction. That is why we take that away. And then we have the respective 47 chetasikas, excluding the dosa chatukka, worry and doubt, and then nibbana, right? Now, the 18 concrete matter in object Aramana is because it is through the concrete matter that we take an object, isn't it? It is through the 18 concrete matter that we take an object. This is focused upon that object, which is an extremely pleasant or powerful, desirable object. What is the object? The object is manifested through the 80 concrete matters. Is that clear, everyone? Right? So dependent upon these desirable objects, right, what can arise? The 8 greed-rooted chittas, the 8 great wholesome chittas, the 4 great functional chittas with knowledge, and the 8 supramundane chittas with regards to Nibbana and their 45 respective chetasikas, excluding hate, etc., and the 2 illimitables because of its passive nature. Right? Because of its passive nature. Is that clear, everyone? Right? Object decisive support. Object decisive support is when an object is extremely desirable. The mind, the mental chitta and chetasikas that arise dependent or having sort of, completely sort of taken by this object. Completely taken by this object. So much so that we forget time and place. Time and place is forgotten. All else is forgotten. Why? This infatuation with the object. Can we think of examples of such examples? Right? Yes. Right? That is object decisive support. Is that clear, everyone? Right? Then we have proximity. Proximity is number 4. Right? Proximity same as 4. Right? Same as 4. So that would mean the preceding 89 chittas, excluding Arahant death consciousness, because after the Arahant death consciousness, nothing arises. And then Arahant death consciousness, nothing arises. And then the 52 chaitsikas. And what is a conditioned state? The succeeding 89 chittas and 52 chaitasikas. Is that clear? The preceding, the succeeding. Is it clear, everyone? And we know the difference between proximity condition and proximity decisive support condition, right? We know the difference now, right? Then what we have is natural. Now, strong past. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි යම්කිසි විදිහකට අතීතේ ගත කරපු any sort of consciousness, mental factor, concepts, anything of the past, isn't it? In the Vishuddhimagga, remember, with regards to the kasinas, it says for a person who has practiced the water kasina before, this person now the water kasina appears very fast to this person. See, now what is that? Concepts, you see here. Concepts. Is that clear, everyone? Right? For the person who has practiced any sort of kasina, any sort of samatha, any sort of vipassana, right? It appears fast. Why? Because of strong past. Yeah, strong past. 89 chittas, 52 chaitasikas, 28 rupas, right? 28 rupas, and some concepts, right? And what does it condition? The conditions the arising of chittas and chaitasikas, succeeding chittas and chaitasikas later on, right? Chittas and chaitasikas later on, right? Now, for example, we can even take the example of, okay, we are from Sri Lanka. We know the roads, or, we have a sense of familiarity with Sri Lanka, right? Now, we might not have that sense of familiarity with the UK, although we might be, we might have lived here for so long, but, we might not have that sense of familiarity that we have with Sri Lanka in the UK, maybe, right? But the moment that we go back to Sri Lanka, having been in Sri Lanka in the past, we have the familiarity arising again, sense of home in a way, right? Now see, because we've lived there, that strong connection to that past, right? Now arises later that those 8, 9 chittas and 52 chaisikas. Is that clear, everyone? Does that make sense? Right? Now that is natural decisive support condition. All right? Make sense? Okay. That is all for today, everyone. Okay, so I will see you all tomorrow morning for the meditation. In the morning, if you are coming. So take care, everyone, and Teruvan Sarnai.
Teruvan Sarnai, Bhante.
Teruvan Sarnai, Bhante. Take care.
Teruvan Saranai Bhante.